Mr. Speaker, and I thank my good friend from Florida for yielding the time. Mr. Speaker, the Airport and Airway Extension Act of 2011, Part 4, extends Aviation Trust Fund revenue collections and Aviation Program Authority at current funding levels through September 16th of this year, while also imposing new restrictions on the Essential Air Service program. Frankly, it's no substitute for a long-term Federal Aviation Administration authorization and casts further doubt on airport construction and safety improvements instead of ensuring air passenger safety, creating jobs, or investing in air traffic control modernization. As I'm sure most Americans would agree, the word uncertain does not belong in a conversation about our nation's aviation system, and it certainly does not belong in the same sentence as air passenger safety. I know a friend in the House who is a pilot agrees with that statement. Over the course of almost great uncertainty surrounding long-term funding for the FAA has threatened and continues to threaten both. Without steady funding, the FAA is unable to best manage the long-term programs and projects that are vital to the future of our aviation system, including life-saving airport safety improvements and the transition to the very important next-generation air transportation system that we know as NextGen. Make no mistake, the United States has the safest, most efficient aviation system in the world. We can all thank our highly skilled, dedicated aviation professionals for that. But in order to ensure that it remains that way, we must stop kicking the FAA reauthorization can further down the road. I know these cans around here get tired of being kicked around the road, down the road. The measure before us is the 21st short-term FAA extension to be considered since the last FAA authorization bill, Vision 100, expired at the end of September 2007. I repeat, this is the 21st short-term FAA extension we have considered in less than 4 years. It is also the 6th extension of Operation Authority for fiscal year 2011. Meanwhile, there's been no progress for weeks on a long-term authorization. While short-term extensions have their place in the legislative process, they should be the exception, not the rule, especially when authorizing the important safety and modernization activities of the FAA. The extension not only fails to address the long-term aviation needs of our nation, but also denies many of our small and rural communities the air service and economic opportunities made possible by the Essential Air Service program. By including these policy riders, House Republicans risk a shutdown of our aviation system. And Senator Rockefeller, after our Rules Committee meeting last night, made that very clear in a letter from him to Chairman Micah. Instead of appointing conferees, as the Senate did 100 days ago, House Republicans seem to be pointing fingers and effectively forcing a vote on the future of the ESA program ahead of conference legislation. While House Republicans continue to play the blame game with the Senate, American businesses and workers are losing out on much-needed economic opportunities. Aviation, as we all know, is an economic engine for the United States, contributing $1.3 trillion to our economy, accounting for more than 11.5 million jobs and $396 billion in earnings and contributing 5.6% to our nation's gross domestic product. Without full-year funding for the FAA, local officials are unable to move forward with project proposals. Because of this, the FAA is an estimated $800 million to $1 billion behind in obligating funding, which translates to tens of thousands of jobs. Furthermore, if the FAA is unable to utilize these funds before the end of the fiscal year, they risk being reprogrammed or rescinded. This, in my view, is irresponsible, dangerous, and unacceptable. The FAA will have to do more with less, which reduces its ability to help airports finance safety improvements such as special runway overshoot areas, runway resurfacing, proper signage and lighting, and equipment to prevent snow and ice buildup on runways. These measures not only save lives, but increase when air traffic is projected to continue growing significantly. According to the FAA, the number of passengers on U.S. airlines is forecasted to increase by about 75% within the next 20 years, and to reach 1 billion passengers annually within the next decade. We must invest more in our aviation system, not less. Long-term FAA authorization should be an immediate priority. In the 110th and 111th Congresses, the House, under Democratic leadership, passed FAA reauthorization bills that would have created jobs, improved aviation safety, and provided the FAA with the tools necessary to modernize airport and air traffic control infrastructure. My friends on the other side should do the responsible thing and appoint conferees so that the House and Senate can work out their differences and finalize a long-term FAA reauthorization bill. Unfortunately, my friends on the other side of the aisle are clearly preoccupied with further isolating small and rural communities than moving this debate forward. In fact, the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee has held no hearings specifically on the EAS program this year, nor did they hold markup on the measure before us. The Senate is not going to pass this, and I won't place the letter in to the record, but Senator Rockefeller makes it very clear, as the chair of the relevant committee in the Senate, that this is not going to pass in its form with the policy riders attached. Yet, without the ability to offer amendments on the floor, as I requested in the Rules Committee last night, to consider a clean extension, one free of the policy riders that will hurt our small and rural communities, we face a shutdown. I believe my good friend from Florida, Mr. Webster, said on Friday this short-term extension would expire, and then our aviation system stands to shut down. That would be most unfortunate. Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.